Hi, and welcome to Chocolate Sunday Part 3. Actually recorded on a Monday because Sunday was too hectic with my boys. Um, Again, there's some fallout that I need to address from my DVD, Chasing Rainbows. It's good, it's good, and I just want to make it clear that it's not my it's not my aspiration in life to be a lobbyist about child sexual abuse or a like a campaigner or but at the same time, as a survivor who has recovered, I believe I have a duty, to share any healing that I've received. I think there's a scripture that says, freely you've received, now freely give. And there's another one that says, when you're healed, turn and heal your brothers. So, although I don't want to be defined by that part of my past, but at the same time, I do want to be known as a safe space for anybody with those issues to not only disclose to, but to, ask for pointers, where to go, what to do, how to heal. So, uh, brief recap, I made a DVD 4 years ago during a court case where my niece took my ex brother in law to court for molesting her as a child. Um, and that is supposed to accompany an autobiography, which is not all about abuse, but is about, just a memoir really of a great life, including some trauma. But I released the DVD first, and it's generated some feedback. Uh, and certainly, with regard to the feedback it's generated locally, where I live in rural Ireland, I just feel I need to update. So, one person in particular disclosed publicly after watching my DVD that they had been abused in the town as a child. As a result of that, the abuser's wife came and talked to me, and I connected her with this person who was brave enough and ready enough to actually deal with it, which can take a lifetime, and for a lot of abuse survivors doesn't happen. So, uh, this wife then contacted the abuse survivor, who's now living overseas, and before that she'd confronted her husband, and he admitted what had happened, although he framed it a different way. He tried to say it was teenage experimentation and so on, but I think there was more than an 8 year gap in age between a 10-year-old boy and, an 18 or 20-year-old molesting him. So I don't buy the teenage experimenting line, and neither did he. So he had a great conversation with the wife and said, no, that was not what it was, and so on and so forth. And the wife asked for, that her kids would be spared from scandal and from shame and so on, which is a reasonable request. And, the abuse victim said, well, I need to talk to your husband. I need closure. I want closure on this, and I'm going to insist one way or another in confronting him. So anyway, within a couple of days, the person who had abused this lad, who's now a grown man, contacted him by phone, and they had a conversation, and the abuser apologized, and the victim actually put up a status publicly on his wall saying, somebody who abused me as a child has just apologized, and I've forgiven them, and it's given me great freedom and closure, and I've let go of a lot of lifetime of resentment and bitterness. So that was great, and that was a miracle, and I was grateful for that, and I thought that was handled. I don't know. It's just one of those. It was a good thing that happened. Um, with regard to other local disclosures, and I'm not trying to be sensationalist here, and I certainly don't want to put myself or my children in any firing line, because this is not my, as I say, it's not my campaign. But at the same time, I think there's a saying, the only thing necessary for evil to prevail is for good people to do nothing. And I'm not setting myself up as good or bad, but nor is it a subject I'm going to just turn a blind eye on. And the Cardinal Brady thing brought up a lot of stuff for me because, Cardinal Brady was saying, when I reported it, to the head of, I reported it to my bishop and he reported it to Kilnacrot, where, that was the order that Brendan Smith was from. So therefore our job was done, we could move on and forget it. And there's still quite a climate of that, like, oh, mind your own business, keep your head down, don't make trouble. You've given the information, so just like leave it at that. And I don't know, if you found out with hindsight that there were other victims of the same person that had abused you and you could possibly have spared them, how would you feel? And I think that's the only real issue I want to address here, is that, a lot of abuse survivors don't get closure. Their abusers never admit to it. They certainly never apologize. So, it's an abuse survivor's fantasy that, oh my God, if he would just admit what he did and say sorry, I would forgive him. And that's great. But there's another level which I'm wrestling with and which the Cardinal Brady thing brought to light, which is, the social conscience. Like, what about, that you have a duty to speak up? Because statistically, the chances are, if that person did it to you, they've done it to somebody else. And then the most alarming part is, are they still active? And I've moved away now from this specific one that I addressed at the beginning of the DVD. I'm just talking generally. There've been a few other people whose names have been brought up by different victims who don't know about each other. And there's one approach a survivor can take, which is, I don't talk about abuse and I've got over it. I went a bit crazy for a few years and I, maybe drank too much, or I was promiscuous, or like I wouldn't let anybody get close to me. But, now I'm with somebody and my life works, so I don't want to rake up the past. I don't want to, I don't want to go through that painful thing again. But the question I'm left with is, yeah, but if there's 2 of you or 3 of you or 5 of you or more, and if you knew that your coming forward would actually validate somebody else and possibly save future victims, where would you stand then? And I've got that own issue to some extent too. I was abused by 3 different people in my childhood. 2 of them are dead, and you have to deal with that whole issue of don't speak ill of the dead. But one of them, I presume, is still alive. He's probably 60. And I've never been able to track him down. He was in France. And I have Googled him and I have kind of like thought, oh my God, he showed all sorts of signs of unwellness. And what if, some victim in France is like, her case was thrown out because it was her word against his. And what if I could, add a piece of the jigsaw? So I just want people to look at, I don't necessarily have all the answers, but I just want people to look at what, if you're fortunate enough to get your own healing and your own closure, then what? Like, are you willing to go through perhaps some painful memories and some embarrassment and, some gossip from the few that are lacking in compassion or sensitivity or just brutal about this subject? Are you willing to go through that discomfort for the sake of, actually that person needs to be stopped? There's very, very few abusers for whom it's genuinely a one-off, for whom it's genuinely an aberration or a teenage experiment. There are some, I'm not saying there are not, but for the most part, if they've done it to you, the probability is they've done it to somebody else and will do it again. So I'm not trying to like generate a witch hunt. I'm just trying to say we maybe need a social conscience, and we maybe need to, the beauty of networking, the beauty of the internet and social media networks and so on, is that, that you can actually connect with other people. And there's power in being able to say, do you know what, there's 4 of us, or there's 2 of us, or there's 5 of us, whatever. and just comparing notes without compromising court cases or procedure or protocol. But basically, I just want to encourage people to take a look and see, you know what, is it good enough for me to just say, I've moved on from that, I don't discuss that, our family doesn't discuss that, or is there another step that you could take that would be the right thing to do? So on that basis, I've just got some numbers here. I took advice because I was kind of overwhelmed with, you know, the feedback for a while. So anyway, in Meath, there's a Bangarda that's specifically trained in the area of child sexual abuse, and she's lovely, and she's sensitive, and she's a good person to talk to. Because no action or investigations can take place unless a victim approaches either the duty social worker, like Child Protection Services in the Health Board, or the guards. There would be no point at all in me as a journalist, or me as a survivor, or me as in any capacity at all. There's no point in me going to the authorities and saying, you know, I wouldn't do it anyway. I wouldn't breach people's confidentiality. But just legally, it has to come from a survivor. So anyway, I'll just give you those details. Vanguard Linda Mostyn, based in Kells, and the number there is 04692 40999. And then the 1 in 4 organisation in Dublin is one of the foremost organisations supporting abuse survivors in Ireland. And if you ring them, they will get back to you within 24, 48 hours and absolutely point you in the direction of, you know, healing and everything that takes, counselling if you want it, support if you want it, protocol for court cases if you want it. Their number's 01662 4070, and that's 1 in 4. And bear in mind, if you're watching this and you're thinking, oh my God, you know, that's a hobby horse, that's nothing got to do with me. The chances are, if it's 1 in 4, just look in your own circle of friends and family. I guarantee you there'll be some abuse survivors in that circle. And the final number, again, referring to me, because this is the thing that really landed on my doorstep, and I've had feedback internationally as well, and that's great. But just my conscience in terms of people I know and abusers I know of, I'm just giving these numbers, and I'm sure you can find the same for your area. But anyway, call the duty social worker if you don't want to call the guards, 04690 30616. And just say that you need to talk to somebody regarding a disclosure. And it doesn't matter if it's 30, 40, 50 years later. Only good can come from just bringing these things out from under the rug. So, yeah, if there's any more developments, I'll keep you updated. You know, like I say, it's not a hobby horse, but it's a subject that I have a social conscience about because it's something I've recovered from. And thanks for listening. Tune in to Chocolate Sunday. I'm actually going to do as part 2 today, continuing the inheritance story, which was totally separate. Checking out now. Thanks.